What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. It's a lovely Venus day, so we'll be discussing Venus in the first house and what it's like to have Venus in your astrological natal chart. So let's get into it. Now, what's Venus? Venus, we all know what Venus is. Venus is the planet of love, relationships, creativity, personal pleasure, and so much more. What is the first house? It's the house of the ascendant, the physical body, our open characteristics, things that people can pretty much see at face value. It's the original house of Aries. All right? So this one, especially if you're out there just learning astrology, really take this in. And if you have this Venus in the first house, it make real sense. This position translates very well here. And Venus is a sign traditionally exalted in the sign of Pisces. But I find that Venus does well in a lot of places. And I even feel like Venus could be exalted in all of the fire signs per se, right? In that of the fire houses. So it's just really a matter of how this Venus is operating, how it's aspected, and most importantly, what sign it's in. But here in the first house, we have someone who is opening up to new realms of personality. They could be developing their personality and sense of self. Or at another level, the planet, this Venus here, and we can assess this by the sign that it's in, how close it may be to the ascendant. This overall strength and support of your Venus in the first house, you'll see if that is representative of you really being bonded with this Venusian energy lifetime to lifetime. So as I grow in my studies, I see one or the other, right? We're either developing a sense of self or we're ingrained in a particular aspect of who we are, and that can now serve as a beacon of light for what we want to do. So what I really want to focus on here with Venus in the first house is the big creativity it possesses. And like I said, the first house is about personality, what you display. And with Venus being the planet of creativity, naturally you get someone here who has some creativity to display. So it's a natural talent that leads to a natural magneticism. So people can be attracted to Venus in the first house for all different types of reasons. Physically, they're pretty easy on the eyes and very good looking. So in a very logical sense, that can be used to one's advantage however one sees it, right? But in the next vein, it really talks about establishing or giving you tools to build confidence, so your brand, your creativity is meant to bring out or brighten up that Venus energy, thus making it easier to attract others. And like I said, this Venus doesn't have to necessarily try hard, but I want you guys to really buy into the idea of stimulating that side of yourself. So with this being opposite the seventh house, there's a need to have a healthy sense of self to therefore have healthier relationships. What this Venus, and now going back to my idea about karmically, if you're pretty well with this Venus energy, so let's say we get a Venus in Leo here in the first house, a Venus in Taurus or Libra in its own sign, see someone who's very much so used to forming the identity through partnership, right? Through one's upbringing. And therefore, they actually seek others out, not to display their creativity or enhance it, but rather serve as a projection of their own ego. So, and then that, depending on what's going on in your seventh house and how your Pluto is set up, will lead to a whole gamut of power struggles. So, independence and a solid sense of self is key. And what you'll find here is the more Venus in the first house is able to have that defining thing about them and be able to exert that influence, the less expectation and the more harmonious their partnerships become. Okay? So the next thing with this is with that natural attention that Venus in the first receives, it gives you clues on how to accentuate the energy. So especially, say we get Venus here in like fixed signs, Venus, Scorpio. This screams sex appeal. And also the desire to display it. So as one thing with my understanding how I was learning this information, it in my mind I was like, okay, this is why we had even women in the 40s and 50s who were willing to be in Playboy and be Playboy bunnies, you know? And especially with Venus, there's just, you'll see there are energies that need to be acted out in different houses. So also another thing could be like uh, as a child being able to find success, uh, especially if the fifth house, ninth house are all connected here, things of that nature. Now let's talk about personal relationships with Venus in the first house. This is a concept that I teach. If you're interested in learning astrology more in depth, feel free to contact me. I have my Lions Den groups in Patreon. But one thing that I teach is the need to keep in mind secondary rulers. There's a lot of ways to look at astrology and an astrology chart, but in simplifying certain things, you have your own ruler of that house and whatever your ascendant may be. But then Mars, in the case of the first house, is still that original ruler, or it's like a secondary ruler. And so with Venus in the first, what we have here, you'll find, is that a person's Mars will give great insight into, let's say, how clingy a person is, how clingy they are or not. Essentially, so let's say we get Venus maybe in a Cancer, Venus in Cancer, Moon deposited in like Gemini, but then we get like a Mars like in Libra, right? This can be someone who is very emotionally connected to forming relationships and being a part of it. And that Mars really is guiding the will per se, because it's a key influence of the first house, right? It's our physical vessel, right? And then how we use that physical, where are we exerting the will? So you want to pay attention to Mars and where Mars is deposited. So, let's say Mars is in like Aquarius. This is going to be more times than not that Venus in the first that's like, you guys like me, but I don't like everybody like that. Or they're just not as open as Venus in another sign, okay? Or what I'm saying is the influence coming from another sign. So Mars, Aquarius, Mars influence having a large impact here on partnerships. And I do want to say, because it's been something that's come to me connected to this position, a few people I've seen, and also other placements like sixth house, Venus in the sixth. But with that said, you'll want to be mindful of things like stalking. Now, keep in mind, I'm not just talking to women here. Women act like men can't be stalked, right? You'd be surprised. But anybody with the position, because of that magnetic thing, you never know who's on the other end in the seventh house or whatever, right? But it has played out in that way where people become obsessive. So keep in mind the third house. Keep in mind the fifth house, because this can occur in a person's first relationship, and that kind of sets the tone for them to know how to approach future partnerships and all of that. But overall, really cool position, mind you. You could feel the energy of Venus in the first house. That's why I was like, okay, Venus, I got you. Nah, I'm gonna let this go again. So This is my interpretation of Venus in the first house. Feel free to chime in. Let me know what you think. If you need a reading, feel free to contact me. Check out my book, Astrology of the Matrix. Amazing read. Until next time, peace.